Hey guys, all right, let's talk a little bit about their charts. So let's start first. We're just going to quickly do Sun-Moon-Saturn for each person, for Jay-Z and for Beyoncé, and a little quick peek at Venus and Mars, okay? And the reason we're going to do these particular planets, these planets have to do with a simple, understand the chart, as we're looking at it with the angles, okay? The angular houses are psychological. You've got your first house. First house is connected, of course. It's the Aries house, naturally. That's the natural sign that is in charge of the wheel, of the first house wheel. Because it's what was rising. It was what was just about to begin. That's Aries' job. Okay, so everything in astrology is like stuff goes in kind of an order in life. It's born, it lives, and it dies, and it's a circle. And astrology itself, even our Earth itself, every day as it's rotating, and there's a sunrise somewhere and there's a sunset somewhere happening right now, right? So astrology is saying that first house is what was just about to rise on the eastern horizon. What was just about to be born, that's Aries, okay? And in fact, like I said, I think really like the ascendant is Aries, whatever. And your ascendant can fall. Now, of course, your houses can land in any sign when we're talking about the sun's ecliptic, the time that you were born and whatnot, and how it's related to the ecliptic, right? What's in the sky. Point is, the wheel, the astrology, the horoscope, the wheel itself naturally as an entity, without looking at it relative to your chart or a particular moment in time, has a nature to it, because we're on a planet that has sunrises and sunsets, and that's how we create a chart. So you have ascendant is what's rising, descendant is what's setting. Okay, everything on the top of the chart, the south part of the chart, the southern hemisphere, which might not make sense, but it is what it is. All the planets that are up there are, they're kind of what's visible up in the heavens above you, and that arc that moves across the sky. And everything on the bottom of the chart's on the other side. It's not within view. It's like as though it's in the imagination or the unconscious. When we talk about with Sun, Moon, and Saturn, this to me, when I think of the sun, the day you were born, okay, that moment that moment you stepped into existence, you took your first breath, you were separated from the mother, you came out, and you were given a name. You were set apart from all of the other human beings in the world. You were given life, right? Independent life. And that has to do with your Mars. You came into existence. You rose. You were animated with the breath of life. So Mars, first house, Aries, this concept, this idea of the beginning of something, the spark, you light a match, you bite something, anything that is like, we had a mass, so think on 12th house, and then all of a sudden something decisive happened, and then we had something new. That's Aries, that's first house. So Aries, Mars has to do with our own, the way we do things. It's the animation of your physical body. It's your liveliness, your spirit, okay? It is also instinctive. It's not a conscious part of the personality. And this is where I differ with a lot of other astrologers. It doesn't make any sense to me that people are like, your ascendant is that it is affected. I completely disagree. Completely. I think that your ascendant is highly unconscious. Like, it's the part of you that other people many times will feel off of you, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know I was doing that. Film yourself and watch your gestures, your mannerisms. To me, that's ascendant stuff. It's like, naturally, if no one was watching you, how do you walk? How do you move? How are you animated? Pretty simple. When it comes to your love life, Mars has to do with when you do something, when you make a decision and you decide to go do something, take action. That's your Mars. That's your ascendant. It's wherever Aries is at in your chart. That's how you do things, right? So some people, not to get off on a tangent, but if you have a Mars in water, if you have a watery ascendant, you're going to do things because of how you feel. Like me, I have a Mars in Cancer, ruled by a Moon in Aries. I can't, if I need to create something or do some work, like with work, it's very creative. And if I'm not feeling emotionally inspired or tied into things emotionally, I cannot force myself. I'll sit down and it's just shit. That's Mars. Know your Mars, know your ascendant, know your Aries. For women, Mars, many times, you will project your Mars onto a man. You'll be attracted to men who have qualities that are like your Mars. That's if you're being, unconscious. It's natural to be attracted to someone and not know why you're attracted to them. But also, it's great to learn, why is it that I keep attracting bad boys or people that are hurt, that are wounded, or that are jerks or whatever. Okay, that's your Mars ascendant. So it's important for women because it's what we may project and look for in other people instead of working on developing in ourselves, when we're unconscious. And then we'll have when you have your little epiphany moment, you recognize your patterns, you may start taking back the projections, which will happen in relationships. You have an affair with someone, it's all passionate and hot and crazy and wow, but then things aren't going so great, and really the reason you had the affair in the first place and had all that maybe compulsive drive to do the thing you did was because of something from your childhood. Maybe there was unresolved conflict with your mom and dad, maybe there's an affair your dad had, or who knows, or you felt like your mom should leave your dad, maybe you felt like she was a pushover, and was never happy or satisfied, so you're liberating the mother by doing the opposite of what she did. That kind of stuff, okay? That's if you're unconscious. Now, Venus, on the other hand, 7th house, thinking of this circle of the wheel, again, the chart, that's everything that's setting. 7th house is, planets are in the 7th house where, if you're outside on a lovely night like tonight, you'd see the sun over there, if it was in the evening. This tells us the day is over. The daylight hours, right, are over. Now that sun is going to go down underneath, and we go home and take a bath or do whatever we do, hang out with our family. So there's this element of it. The planets are moving now into the personal world. But they've been in the sky all day, right? They've been out there in the world. They've experienced things. Whereas ascendant, rising sign, it's what was just about to be born. So it's new, it's naive, it's fresh. It hasn't learned anything yet. End of the day, it's very interesting. Sun moves through the 9th house of Sagittarius, which is, has to do with wisdom and learning and the journey. Maybe we think we know everything, and then moves into the 8th house, and it's the part of life where we find out we didn't know everything we thought we knew, betrayals, that kind of thing, whatever. Anyhow, then into the 7th house of Libra, and then setting. Descendant, how have I learned to behave in order to interact with other people? What has been my personal experience? I go out in the world with this ascendant. The opposite, I'm walking around with my own eyeballs, looking at everything from my perspective. My eyeballs can't see themselves, even in a mirror. I'm not looking at my own eyeballs, I'm looking at a reflection. So you have lots of planets in the 7th. They're your planets, but there's a quality here of perhaps feeling like they kind of belong to other people in a way, or you need other people to understand those parts of yourself. So if your sun's in the 7th or your moon, then relationships are very important to you. And you may feel like, something about your world isn't right unless you're in some sort of relationship or just interacting with other people. It's an area for you that's about you learning how to understand what's yours and what's someone else's. Okay? So Venus is important. Mars, how someone just naturally does things. Like you're just raised by wolves, kind of, Mars is kind of how you didn't go to any sort of etiquette classes. You were like, I don't know, you were raised on a farm in the middle of nowhere on an island, and you didn't have interaction with other kids, okay? You'd be your Mars, whatever that looks like, right? Venus, on the other hand, if you were raised in a situation, Venus has to do with how did you learn to behave socially. And if, by the way, you were on an island by yourself with no other kids, your Venus would probably be afflicted or, I don't know, probably have something interesting with your 7th house. Point is, how would you naturally just do something, and then how have you learned to do things maybe a little differently to relate or interact with other people? Doesn't necessarily mean, there's lots of people who have, a lot of us, like probably all of us, have issues with relating. We're not good at understanding the person's perspective. We're not good at, we're working on learning that. So then we talk about, so think of the Mars and the Venus as personifications as well, kind of the psyche in a sense, right? Personification, meaning Mars is the man in you, Venus is the woman in you. How would the Mars in you go do something, go after something it wants, fight for something? Would it fight for something? Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it would fight for its own freedom. Who knows? Your Venus, how though have you learned, if I kind of do these things in a certain way, I might get what it is I'm wanting. Okay, so the pleasure, it's a social planet. We have an animalistic or primal planet when you think Mars. And we have a socially adapted and affected planet when you think of Venus. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That easy. Then we have Moon, 4th house, Saturn. You see Saturn up in the 10th house. 4th house and 10th house. IC, MC. Okay. And because it's a wheel, a circle, and because we have a circle, of course, the circle doesn't have a beginning, a middle, or an end. It's just a circle. Right? But because we have a planet that has light and dark, day and night, and we have a horizon, then we have two. We have a thing. If we didn't have day and night, we would have 1 point. We'd have 0. We wouldn't have duality. Okay? Duality is not a bad thing. A lot of New Ager people talk about duality like it's so bad. And they're like these young people where I'm like, you haven't even hit your Saturn return yet. You don't even know duality yet. You're talking, you're just repeating what you've heard. But that's just me being a brat. Duality you have to have in a 3-dimensional world in order to have anything. Okay? You can't have light without dark. You can't have dark without light. You just have nothingness. So when we talk about 4th house, the bottom of the chart, because now we have a horizon, this is midnight. You know, it's like if we were to do your chart, we created a wheel on the spring, the vernal equinox. We would have midnight on the bottom, we'd have noon, 12 o'clock noon at the top. What are you doing at midnight? What should you be doing? Probably sleeping. You should be in bed or home. You should be safe. You should be tuckled up. You should be, you know, don't they say like the devil comes out after midnight? The saying. You should be protected. Okay? Now, I'm saying this in general for everyone. That's the 4th house. What if you're a person who, for you, traveling the world feels like home to you? Maybe you're very restless and being home actually feels very cloistering or doesn't feel comfy to you. I like to take baths. You know, that's kind of 4th house behavior, activity. A lot of people don't like to take baths, right? So very personal. And your 4th house is your moon. It's Cancer. Where's the moon in your chart? Where's Cancer in your chart? Okay. This is going to show you if you want to know another person's like their love language. It's not their romance, which is Venus, which is not the fullness of a person. It's like one part of a person. Their moon is a deeper part because your moon is with you from the time you are in utero. You start developing your feeling function, I believe. Your unconscious mind starts working before you have a language. That's your moon. In my mind. Again, I differ with a lot of astrologers on this because it's my opinion. It works for my personal, my paradigm. 4th house, what does this person need to feel safe, to feel secure, to feel like they belong, to feel like they are home? Okay? Naturally, when something occurs in this person's life, how do they react or respond to it? It's their sort of, and in fact, when I say react, it's an unconscious, something happens and then you just feel how you feel, right? You might feel compulsive. You may have habits, 4th house. You may have habits that you take part in that are not helpful for you, but they come from a very unconscious, perhaps something from your past, also 4th house stuff, okay? The past, our childhood, our roots, this time in our life when we were alive, but we don't remember any of it. For, a few years, which is pretty intense if you think about it. So, 4th house is very important in relationship readings because if you have 2 people who are going to get married to one another, their moons need to be compatible. There needs to be some sort of, I naturally know how to comfort you. I naturally can read you. I can feel you. You know, if you live together, your moons really, really, really need to be compatible. Okay, 10th house, Saturn. Capricorn, this is this archetype in our circle, our wheel. We have the beginning, the sunrise or whatever. Ascendant, Aries, instinctive, primal. Then we move down into the 4th house, which I always think of as, I think of the ascendant, in fact, on a human level. I think of it almost even God or whatever the powers that be is like, and I have conceptualized and created this entity, sort of like God deciding from the mass of consciousness, plucks out a little piece of consciousness and spirit, and it's like, this is gonna be Bob, okay, and then there's this whole process, I think, too, before you're actually physically in the womb, being developed, which is fourth house, and then coming over into the seventh house, into Libra. This is when it's pretty fascinating mathematically. 1 through 6, and then when you get up here 7 through 12, those houses, they're just the flip of the first 6 houses. So, really is true. Relationships are always really about you. So if relationships in your life aren't working the way you're wanting them to, you're the reason. Period. It's not a bad thing. It's true for all of us. It's actually empowering, and you can change things for yourself. But you have to own and recognize your unconscious behavior. Okay, so Libra, over here is kind of other human beings, other people, interactions, best friend when you're a kid, your first boyfriend, any type of relating socially to other human beings is seventh house. That's Libra. And that's why Libra also can be a sign that has to do with the shallow side of life. Everything, just the look of something, rather than the deeper, the pleasure something gives, the fanciness of something, how pretty it is. It's really shiny. When we move up into the 10th house, though, you got Capricorn. And, Capricorn, once you're to that sign, it's the 10th sign in the zodiac. So we're only 2 signs away from the end of the zodiac. 2 signs away from the end of life. Capricorn represents maturation. It represents, you've lived long enough. You've had a couple Saturn returns. You've experienced life. You have hopefully gained some wisdom. Capricorn in a relationship and Saturn. How does this person approach their fears? How do they approach, what are they afraid of, too, in general? It's kind of, Saturn sort of represents as well, what is it sort of out there, out in the world that I need to prepare myself for? The family of origin I came from, which I think of as 4th and 10th house. Okay, I very much believe that 4th house is mom, 10th house is dad, or is the other, if there's another guardian, their parent, or whomever it is we see as the person who's outside of that first initial bond, which is typically with the mother or that first primary caregiver. That's 4th house, okay? So anyway, what am I afraid of? Where am I going to feel like I'm not enough? Where do I feel like I don't measure up? My life sucks. I've made it this far in life, and I'm only here. I'm inadequate, or I'm amazing, or I'm putting way too much emphasis on being perfect or being reaching some standard that the outside world says I'm supposed to attain. But I get there, and it's really empty. It doesn't mean anything for me. It doesn't mean what I thought that it would mean. Okay, that's when we come back down into the moon, down to the 4th. Listen to your own intuition, your own inner voice. Okay, so do you now kind of see why I think of this cardinal cross is fundamental? And by the way, it doesn't matter if you are male, female, if you're transgender, if you're homosexual, if you're straight, if you're whatever, okay? We're talking a circle, 360 degrees, it has everything in it. It's all in there. It's like white light. It's all the colors mixed together make white, okay? So astrology I don't care one bit about your physical body, like what parts you have, what your, which chromosomes you have. Point is, we all have a natural way of doing things that is the part that's going to do things or not do things. And we have a part of us that has learned how to behave socially or not learned, or whatever the case may be. We all have, at this point, we were all babies. We were all in a woman's belly, okay? Had that first human connection and bond, hopefully, with another human being that played out in a certain way that we personally, by the way, perceived. So your moon may be different from all your siblings, good chance it is. Your perception of mom or of your childhood, of your home, may very well be different from your siblings, okay? So what this person is used to emotionally, like in their world, they feel safe. What is it for this person as well that they're afraid of? Or that's not really a good way of couching Saturn. What is it in life this person takes seriously? So much so that for some people they may have weighed that thing. So I'm going to keep this simple. Let's look at our I'm now like at 20 minutes of talking, and I've explained to you guys the basics of the cardinal cross. We'll look at that, and Pluto is very important as well. At this point, it's the planet that we use kind of as the outer bounds, more or less. Its orbit's kind of funky, but it's the outer bounds of our solar system. As a clock gear, it's very slow. It takes it takes it about 3 human lifespans, sort of on average-ish, to make its way all the way around our star, around our sun. Like 3 lifetimes. Pluto is the planet that we think of as associated with past lives because, naturally, or other lives. Pluto, perhaps in this life, is in the circle. It's made it this far, and maybe in another life it's going to make it this far, and that's like, it's like the journey that you've been on, but more than just in this incarnation. Okay, so let's just take a look at these two. I'm going to probably pause here because we're going to have a part 3. So I'm going to pause, and I'll be right back.